It might interest you to know that Janelle started speaking competitively at age 6 when she entered a speech contest. Janelle earned her PhD from the University of California, Berkeley in education, curriculum and design, along with 2 master's degrees, one in political science and one in psychology. She fondly remembers when she first stepped onto a street in Berkeley, feeling for the first time she was at home. And this was all during the time of the free speech movement, where she was tear gassed in the classroom. After traveling the world as a keynote speaker, consultant, best-selling author, subject matter expert, and president of International Training Company, she says she'd rather stay in her fabulous New Mexico 850 square foot home filled with arts and collectibles and her husband and son and speak on Zoom. I'm with you, Janelle. After speaking in 87 different countries for more than 4 decades, I seriously doubt if there's anywhere else left she wants to go to. For 33 years, she was one of us. She lived in the Bay Area, and then she moved with her family to Las Vegas for 18 years. That's when I started spending much more time with Janelle and Jeffrey, her husband. They held the best dinner parties with the most interesting guests, and I was always the dullest person in the room. She now calls Albuquerque her home, where she got actively involved and was the president and revived National Speakers Association New Mexico. She still misses her friends in the Bay Area. To discuss, believe it, a complaint is a gift. Please welcome the Queen of Complaints, Janelle Barlow.
Oh, thank you. Boy, you did that well, Fripp. Just a couple of quick announcements. First of all, our house is not 850 square feet, it's 8,500 square feet. You missed a 0 there. Anyway, I've been having some compute or some internet connection problems here. If I go dull on you, please, and the rest of you are connected, because I think that's what's happened. I've been disconnected 3 times already. And then it picks up by itself automatically. So if that happens, just unmute yourself and start talking about the worst complaint you've ever had, because there's a lot to be learned when that happens. So did you know by any chance that today is National Complaints Day? I see some of you have grabbed your phones to see if there's something special you're supposed to do on this day. Actually, I just made that up. There is no such thing as a National Complaints Day. There is no such thing. But do you think we should have one? And if we had one, what would it be? Would it be where we complain more or we complain less? If you think we should complain more, raise your hand. Okay, if you think we should complain less, raise your hand. And if you don't think this early in the morning, you can raise your hand as well, huh? Okay, so it looks like a number of you think we should complain more. Now, I personally believe that complaints are gifts. If more of us complain, I'm going to talk about 3 things and some of the side things about complaints that you may not know. And I want to just define complaint for you very simply. It's a statement of dissatisfaction. And it's important, I think, to understand that definition. Lots of people say to me, oh, you know, I think we should stop using that word complaints because nobody likes it. And we should use the word feedback. And then I say to them, yeah, that's a possibility. That feedback can be both positive and negative, but complaints are wasn't negative, satisfied.
We are having some internet issues, so Janelle, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you and I can see you. I can see you moving.
Okay.
It looks like normal to me.
Okay, go ahead then.
But if you can hear me, that would be fine. That would be fine. You don't have to listen. I mean, look at me.
All right.
Most people think that we complain too much. That's the one thing I hear is, do we have to do all this complaining? It makes everything so nasty. Actually, very, very few people complain to somebody who can do something about the situation. The numbers are like this, and these numbers have been consistent for the last 30 years. And that is about 96% of all people will never complain about something to somebody that can do something about it. Now, we will complain. Yes, we will. We'll tell a whole bunch of people. But we don't get around to telling people who can help us solve the problems. Now, if you have a big problem, you will complain. If you buy a new car and the wheels fall off, believe me, you will go complain about that, no doubt about it. But little small things, we just don't complain. And I'll tell you this, in the business to business world, those numbers are the same. It's really not any different from person to person to business to business. I want to give you an example. It just happened to me last Sunday, less than a week ago. I went into a Dollar Tree store where, incidentally, everything now is $1.25. I don't know if it's no longer $1. The store was very crowded. There was a single clerk at the front desk, and people talking with each other, and I could hear them talking about why can't they bring somebody else out? So I went and got the packages that I wanted to get, which is to send books. My complaint is a gift book out, and got in the line. And I thought to myself, I wonder if anybody will complain, including myself. And I thought, no, nobody's going to complain. I mean, there was this poor elderly woman who was struggling with not only punching in everything. Everything is $1.25 in that store. There's no need for them to scan anything. They just need to count how many objects a person has. That's all they need to do. But she's scanning everything in. She was the bagger, and then she had to take the money and then hand the people something, to take their goods out with. And she looked so tired and so exhausted. And I thought, I'm not going to complain, because this poor woman is really suffering as it is. Wouldn't a lot of you feel that same way? It's like, just do whatever you can to help her, because it's not very pleasant. Now, when I got home, I got on Amazon to see what they have in terms of the same product. As it turns out, there's a branded product for sending books that costs 78 cents instead of $1.25. Now, just think of what that does to me and my willingness to go back in and shop at the dollar store again for this particular product. And I have a few of these packages that I need to buy. I wonder if Dollar Tree has any idea of how much money they're throwing away. Because, I really made a commitment. I'm not going back in there to endure that on a Sunday afternoon. What most customers do is they just walk away. Think about what a company does. Some of you who are in business, you know what it takes to get a new customer. You have to build your business, you have to market it, you have to do everything, make it all work. And then a customer comes in, customer has a complaint, and they don't tell you about it, and they walk away. Now, if there's any definition of leaving money on the table, I think that is it. This is just throwing money away when we do that. Did you know that the Viking Cruises, which is a company I've worked with, that they spend 50% of their revenue getting people into those ships to sail? 50%. So now let's say that they get somebody in on the ship. Then they have to do everything to make the ship work. That's expensive too. And then a customer has a bad problem. You definitely want to hear about that. You want to know what you can do to make that work for that passenger so that they'll come back away again. Dollar Tree is throwing money away, and a lot of businesses are throwing money away because of their attitudes toward complaint handling. They do everything up to the point where the customer has the problem, and then nothing happens. And if you think about that as a business model, it doesn't make much sense at all. John Goodman, who is one of the world's experts on complaints and looking at them, he's the one who did the original research on complaints. He says that 1 in possibly 3 to 10,000 points of contact that a customer has with the store when they complain actually makes it to the top of the company. Somewhere between 3 and 10,000 actions communicated to the top of the company where maybe something could happen. I think Dollar Store really needs to take a look at their business model. It's just not working. I don't care about prices. Something there? Okay. You see, what we're taught to do from when we were small children is to not complain. Okay, I got to notice that my internet connection is unstable. Can you still, am I still connected to you? Okay, good. We've been taught since we were small children to not complain. Parents will tell their children, stop complaining. That I think every child hears that, and we hear it a lot. We call people who complain whiners and gripers and rude and nasty and cheaters. And there really aren't a lot of positive words about complainers. I went through several dictionaries at one point to look at all the words. There's so many words that are negative about complainers. Nobody says that a complaint is a gift. I tell you that. Then there's no dictionary that says a complaint equals a gift. They just don't say that. We're brought up on the phrase, I think most of us were, if you can't say anything nice, then don't say anything at all. And that it's in my head. I wake up in the morning, and if I'm in a good mood, I probably am not going to complain. It generally takes some irritation on my part to get me to complain in the first place. And there's a certain element of we want to punish when we're complaining. There's some of that goes on with complaints. But I believe, and I since convinced myself of this, that complaints are gifts. So why is that? I can give you 5 quick reasons. I won't go into any detail on them, but there's 5 reasons why complaints are gifts. And one of them is that it tells us what the customers want. Here they are. They're just offering us their opinion about what they want. We don't have to go out and do research on that. Listen to them, and they will tell you. They give us a chance to turn customers into long-term satisfied customers. Research done on this as well, and that is that the most loyal customers tend to be people who've had problems, got those problems solved, form a relationship with somebody, then a customer. Just think about your own relationships. If you were in a relationship through a very difficult, traumatic family situation, it's probably that kind of a situation that makes the family. If you don't get through it, then you get divorced, you separate, you do something like that. But if you can get through that, you end up with a stronger than if you had. Complaints help us create customers. It's the least expensive marketing tool. You can do focus groups, you can do all kinds of different things, but a complaint it's right on the pulse of what the customer wants. It's one of the best marketing tools around. I'm sure you all remember the Coca-Cola story from long ago, when Coca-Cola did enormous amounts of research to get rid of their old Coke and introduce new Coke. And the research was clear. The public wanted new Coke. And then they introduced it. And then you may remember that, people flew into Atlanta to stand and attack Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola then came around. They're smart. They realized they had something missed. But think about that. All that research, and they still couldn't get it right for the customer. But if they'd listened to them a little bit more carefully, they might have. Complaints will tell you who are loyal. Actually, the most loyal customers are the ones who complain. If if you think about it, if you're the first time in a store and it's not a good experience for you, why would you stay? You'll just leave. But if you're used to shopping there, you have a relationship with people there, you're a loyal customer, chances are you'll say something because you want to come back. So these are all good reasons why people complain. And another reason why people complain is because at least they are talking with you and not with the rest of the world. And when they talk with the rest of the world, you can't defend yourself at all. It's better to get them talking to you. You learn things, you find out who they are, and you can create loyal customers. So there's just no question about it. Complaints are gifts if they're handled well, So why is it that people don't complain besides having been told from when we were small children to not complain? There's a couple of reasons. And some of you may know this. The biggest, most common cited reason why people don't complain is because we don't think anything will happen. We look at that pitiful person standing there in front of in a retail operation. We look at that person and we evaluate them. Are they going to do anything? And if we think, nope, they're not going to do anything, what will we do? We walk, we just leave. We're not going to waste our time getting into fight with somebody where nothing is going to happen. That is the number one cited reason why people don't complain. So Fripp, when you were talking about dress well and make yourself, they're going to do things. Just second reason why people don't complain is one that many people don't guess. There's all kinds of reasons why people don't complain. I've done research, when I've done seminars on complaint handling, I will sometimes invite a group to form little small groups, brainstorm and many things that they can think people don't complain. And they'll come up with well over 100 reasons in just a short period of time. Quite extraordinary. And they're really interesting reasons why people don't complain. Like, he reminded me of my nephew and I like my nephew. Things like that. Or I had to go to the bathroom and so I needed to get away from and go some. You think of it and that's what's going through the customers' heads and they're not complaining. But the number two reason why people don't complain is because we're afraid the situation is going to get worse. It's called retribution. We're afraid they're going to attack us. For example, in a restaurant, how many of you would not complain if you with the food about the food in front of you because you're afraid of what the cooks might do to that food in the kitchen? And let me assure you, they do. I've talked with them, and not all the time by any means. The food. And we know that that's possible. How many of you would not complain in a bank before you got the bank loan certified or set up? Because you don't want them to stop. You don't want to make your child's school teacher because of what they might do to the child. And if the policeman pulls us over for speeding, we're not going to complain to them about a whole bunch of social issues. Or we know there's a chance that it might get worse, and then we won't say anything at all. But the waste of time and retribution is a huge reason why people don't complain. It's complicated. This whole field is very complicated. And unfortunately, what many organizations think is that if they just simply get somebody who's 20, 21 years of age, standing in front of the customers, reading a script, that will somehow or other satisfy the customer when they have a complaint. And instead, what we really need to recognize is that complaints are complicated emotional interactions, and that people really need to be very aware of what's going on psychologically, emotionally, to really work with those customers to get them to do something. I think maybe we need a national complaints day. I think my first suggestion to you is actually a good one. and it would pinpoint what we need to do to make this thing work. Complaint handling is an emotional intelligence experience. You need to make the customer feel that they've been heard. That's one of the most important things. You really need to hear them, even if you don't give them what they want. You need to hear them, what they have to say. You need to make them feel that they've been treated fairly. It is one of the strongest emotions that humans have, is that's not fair. I think children as young as 3 years of age, when they can barely begin to talk in whole sentences, they are saying things like, that's not fair. The brother gets a bigger piece of cake, they get the little small cake. Believe me, they know that's not fair. And they look at, you can see them look at it and evaluate it. And then when they can, they'll say, that's not fair, Mommy, that's not fair. The entire world, and in fact, all basic animals have the same reaction. There's this wonderful study that was done at Stanford University. They took monkeys, and one monkey they gave as a reward something really nice that they like to eat, and the other monkey got like a little rock. And the monkey that gets the rock looks at it, it looks at the partner across the way who got this wonderful food to eat, looks at it, takes the rock and throws it out the cage at the person who's in the experiment. And they found that this works with most animals. We have this DNA, we have this genetic propensity built in us that says this isn't fair. So fairness is extremely important. When you walk up to a line, right where you, it's not fair. Right? It's not fair. And that just starts the whole chain of how we're going to feel. The other part of the emotional component of complaint handling is friendliness. It's so important people be friendly. So important. When I worked with the Viking ocean and river cruises, one of the things that we really emphasized was the smiling was important. I mean, you know, they talk about good service is not just smiles. Yes, that's it's not. Boy, does it make a difference when you walk around one of those ships and everybody has the biggest, happiest smile. They're enveloped by this strong human emotion of friendliness. Big gift we give back to the customer when they bother to complain with. It's not anything to be just, it's just friendliness. We really need to shift in our thinking, because if we see a customer coming towards us and we think, trouble, I want to try to cheat out of today. Whatever negative emotion we have, it shows up in the interaction that we have to the customer who's complaining. But what if we really saw the complaint as a gift? And somebody here has a birthday today. Did I hear that? Or did I hear that? Who was it that has the birthday? I don't know if I can see you on my screen now.
It's Tom Kowalski, but he is not here, and Terry Cowie neither are able to attend today.
Okay, all right, then let me use you, Fripp. Yeah, I know your birthday isn't until April. You've got an April birthday like myself. And except that I'm a Taurus and you're what is Aries is before, is that right? Yeah. So, but let's say it's your birthday, and so I come up to you and I say, I have a gift for you. See this little. It says happy birthday.
Oh, I love teddies.
You love them, huh? You know, she might look at this and say, I love teddies, but inside her head might be thinking, well, this one isn't very nice. You know, the British make much better bears than we do in this country. And she may be thinking, I wonder where she bought this. Was it at the dollar store? It probably only costs I know she shops there, so probably only was $1.
I would not think that.
No, you wouldn't.
I would grab it and cuddle it.
Well, I'll tell you, the next time I see you, I'll bring you this little teddy doll with the happy birthday sign on it. A lot of people would have, I wonder who I can give it to. We think about regifting. I don't want that. I've got too many teddy bears as it is. Who can I give it to? or whatever thought that we have about it. But we try to look polite. We'd put a, oh, thank you. You really shouldn't have. I'm thinking, yeah, I probably shouldn't have. You can tell what she's thinking. But what if her attitude really was as she started off, which was, oh, I love teddies. It's so cute. And look at that little, whoa. And it can almost suck its toes. Oh, there it is. What a great little bear. You might think that. And that will start our complaint handling. And it's a whole different kind of complaint handling. If we can get inside our head, thank you for this wonderful gift that you're going to give me. Now, you don't say that out loud, but that's what it is. We'd have a different outcome if that's what in fact happened. But there's some big myths. There's some big myths about complaint handling. And that is that everybody automatically knows what to do when they receive one of these gifts. And the fact is that they don't, because they've learned a pattern from their siblings, where brothers and sisters, if any of you had brothers and sisters growing up, you fight with each other. And then one says to the mother, generally it's this younger one who says to the mother, Mom, look what so-and-so is doing to me. Mother says, stick up for yourself. Learn how to deal with this, or something along those lines. And that's what they learn. And what we have to do is we have to check our responses. For those of you who are speakers, if somebody comes up to you and says, I think that your speech just went right over the head of everybody there. You could see it on their faces. Now, there's a good chance, oh, look at that cute little baby there. There's a good chance that if somebody says something like that to you, you're thinking to yourself, yeah, well, what about you? I've seen you speak. And let me tell you, it was boring. It was, yeah, we get very defensive when people attack us like that. We do. A lot of people say, don't even listen to that. Don't even listen to that stuff. But what if we really change that approach? Let's say that I'm married to somebody and my husband I am married, but my husband does not do this because I've trained him well so that he doesn't do it. But what if he left his clothing laying everywhere? And I say to him, I don't know how many times I have to tell you this is a mess that you're leaving on the floor. Now, is he likely to say to me, oh, thank you, sweetheart, for letting me know about that. I forgot again. What do you think? Think he's likely to say that? Good chance. No, there's a good chance that what he's likely to say is, yeah, but what about you? You leave everything hanging over the shower curtain. You leave whatever he says. And then I say, I should have thought about this when I married you, because you're an awful lot like your father. I remember how he was. And then he's likely to say, well, let me tell you how you remind me of your mother. And she had a big butt just like you. Now, this is not going to go very far in building a relationship. People need to let go of their go-to defensive reactions to complaints. There's a wonderful social studies, a social science experiment that was done with children in the center of big cities where they use a lot of guns to get their way. And what they wanted to do was teach these kids that they had alternatives to reaching for the gun and shooting someone, because that's their go-to. It's a wonderful phrase. That was their go-to response. So they would put these kids, these young boys, in pairs, and they would give them something like this ball. And they would give one of the two of the pair would have the ball. And they would say, okay, now they would say to the other one, I want you to get that ball. So what do you think they did? The kid that's supposed to get the ball. They didn't give them guns in this part of the experiment, but how do you think they went to get the ball? Well, they fought for it. Now, I've done this with adults and they do the same thing. They fight for it. And you can see them, they're fighting for, I want the ball, I want the ball. And after a while, you say to them, well, did it ever occur to you to ask the person who has the ball, would you mind just giving me the ball? It had never occurred to them that that was a response that they could have. And always The person who has the ball, when you ask them, what would you do if somebody asked you for the ball? They'd say, well, I'd give it to them. And that's what they were trying to do, was to get these kids to think that when they were in a conflict, that they didn't have to just automatically go for the. And unfortunately, all of us to some degree or another have a go-to response. And what we need to do is we need to recognize that these behaviors aren't going to work for us at all. So, and I want to say something else to you in case any of you want to know about this, and you can ask some questions about it as well. The solution to handling complaints is not just to give the customer what they want, what they ask for. That's not the solution. You don't have to give people what they ask for, but you need to handle them. You need to talk with them in a way where it's okay that they didn't get that. My husband and I just bought a new Subaru Outback Wilderness. I don't know if you know that car. Oh, it's nice. And it makes a clunk when we drive over the little bumps in our housing development. They clunk. No, there's no way that if we go back to the dealer and we say to them, we'd like a new car, they're not going to give us a different car. We put 54 miles on it already. They're not going to give us a new car. But they have to talk with us in such a way that it's okay that we're not going to get a new car, even though it's a brand new one. That's the key. You don't have to give people what they would really like, but you have to talk with them and deal with them about the situation for it to be okay. Because good complaint handling is not giving the store away. A lot of people think that. And you may also want to know that most people who are coming to you are not cheaters. They estimate that maybe 4% of the population will try to cheat you when they're complaining. It's a very, very small, it's a very, very small number. Now, I think I'm getting close to where my time is ending. I think so. And I want to finish with the story. And it's a story that my business partner, Victoria Holtz, who is my co-author with the Complaint is a Gift workbook, that she tells. She's a citizen of Mexico, but her ancestral history is Polish, Jewish, and her family escaped Poland to get out of the Holocaust. But she's fully Mexican and she understands the culture of Mexico. Now, about 2 months prior to the birth of her first child, she was at home and she received a telephone call. And the person at the other end of the line said, I have your husband, we're holding him for ransom. And if you don't give us $1 million, we're going to kill him. 2 months before the birth of her first child. Now, I don't know if you know this, but kidnapping is quite a common phenomenon. It's not an everyday phenomenon, but it happens quite a bit in Mexico compared to some other countries. We don't have that same problem in the United States. And she was well acquainted with the Complaint is a Gift philosophy. She taught it, had been using it for quite a while. And she realized at that moment that she said was probably going to impact what was going to happen to her in a way that nothing else probably would. Now, I'm going to tell you a real abbreviated version of this story, but once she and I were both in Shanghai and I was speaking and I asked her to introduce me. And in the introduction, I asked her to tell the whole story. It took her about half an hour to tell the story. The audience was in tears when she told that story. It's a remarkable story. And here's what happened. She took in a deep breath of air, cleared her mind, and she said to this man, I'll bet, she said, thank you very much for not harming my husband. Actually, by that time, they had been kicking him and pushing him, and he was already been affected. She said, thank you for not harming my husband. He's going to be a father in just a few days. And then she stopped. And she said, I'm sure that you had a loving mother who raised you to be a good man, to be a good son. Now, the room was filled with, that she couldn't see, but the room was filled with her husband and this gang of people who had kidnapped her husband. And they were all saying to the kidnapper, what's she saying? What's she saying? What's she saying? And he said to them, well, she's crazy. She's crazy. She's talking about my mother. She's crazy. But Victoria just continued. She continued saying about what a good person she was sure that he was. Along this line, the whole, you've got a complaint to me, you want $1 million. She gathered some goods together, had a couple more conversations with them. Her husband says that all the guys who were with the kidnapper were horrified that he was going to turn the husband over to his wife, because that's what they were going to do. Victoria gathered a whole bunch of goods to go meet them at a certain place to give them things. I mean, as much as she had in the house, jewelry and cash and electronic goods and everything else, she gathered it all together and drove off to a very dangerous part of Mexico City and waited there and waited for 3 hours. And then finally she got a telephone call from, I hope I'm not going to cry telling the story, that they had let him go, and he'd been walking trying to find her, and finally got a telephone and called her. And then she went in and met him. Every time I come to Mexico, her husband, he thanks me for saving his life. I think that's a complete over exaggeration of what happened, but it's a remarkable story of what happens when you don't get defensive, but when you go on the side of this person is suffering, this person is doing something that's not, it's not good for them, it's not good for us. Let's see what we can do to make this right. It's the most remarkable story that I've ever heard about a complaint is a gift. We talk about this story in both our book and in the workbook. It's a story that is, it's just almost unbelievable, isn't it? It's just, I mean, like, how could this possibly happen? But it worked for her. So when somebody complains, thank them. I think that's the first thing that we should do when people complain, is say, thank you so much for letting me know. Because if they didn't tell us, we'd never know. You know, like, thank you for giving me an opportunity for fixing this for you. Because if they didn't tell us, we wouldn't have an opportunity to do so. It's a whole shift in how we look at feedback from people that we're interacting with. Remember, complaints tell us what they want. If we listen, we can hear it. It enables us to keep them long-term. The marketing information is free that they're giving us. We don't have to pay for it. It's free. You know, how many of you ever just call a company to talk with them? You don't. We generally have to have like a complaint to start talking with them. So when they're there talking with you about something that bothers you, boy, what an opportunity to listen to them. Complaints give us an idea who's loyal. This is, you know, we should see these people coming towards us with a big yellow post-it on their forehead that says, I'm a loyal customer. Because that would be a good way to look at those customers. Complaints are a reality. They're not going to go away. They're not. They're here to stay, but they're gifts. And what we should probably do is thank people, apologize, fix the problem, and then ensure that they leave with positive emotions. And I think if that happens, then we won't have a need for a complaints day. Thank you.
Thank you, Janelle.
Thank you. Very good.
Despite the internet, it was still wonderful. Colin's beating me to it, but I do have a question after Colin.
Okay.
Come off mute, Colin. Yeah.
Got it. Well, it's not exactly a question, but I do appreciate the talk, because as a building manager, I'm in the business of, it's my job to field complaints.
Yeah.
It's like, I want to know when
Yes.
something's wrong in the building so we can get to it and fix it right away.
Exactly.
And that's just part of the job. And whether that happens, whatever the time of the day or what have you, it's just, it's something that it took me a while as a building manager, 10 years as a building manager to really to understand and appreciate that. And that's why I have the free apartment and the salary is to hear from the complaints of tenants if there is a particular issue that needs to be addressed. So thank you for the talk.
Cool,
Yeah,
thank
and
you.
I'm sure colleagues where they
Mhm.
didn't complain to you early enough so that the problem got really bad and out of hand, and then it can
Yes,
end
yes,
up
there are.
costing-
Yes. I can't stand. It's like this happened. This is when I was managing another building, and somebody took months to tell us about a bed bug problem that then spread to other units in adjoining units in the building and made the problem worse. Which is why it's like if there is a problem with bed bugs, let us know right away, so
Right.
that the problem doesn't get worse, so the problem doesn't spread. I want to know when something's happening as soon as possible,
Oh.
so the problem doesn't get worse.
Right. No, we own 2 Airbnb houses, and one of the things that we tell them in all our notices on the walls and when we introduce them to the property is, if you see something that is wrong, let us know, because we want to fix it. We don't want the next guest to have this. So we anticipate, come on, give us your feedback. And it's amazing.
I wish Hollywood was better at it. It's like, when they turn out crappy movies and the fans get upset, then, too often we've got, Hollywood people attacking the fans. It's like, no, fix your damn movies.
Yeah.
Cool. All
Yeah.
right, Patricia, then followed by Teresa.
Thank you, Janelle. And there was a local restaurant that was our favorite to have breakfast. My pals, we walk and we have breakfast. This was a highlight of a Saturday. And they changed their coffee. So I stopped drinking the coffee because I make my own nice coffee at home. And then one day I said to the delightful wait person, we're regulars. We come here all the time. And you've changed your coffee and it's not nearly as nice as it was. Can you tell your manager that, could you go back to the old coffee? And she said, oh, you'll be much more effective at getting their attention if you write it on Yelp than if we tell them.
Yep.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many times I've heard remarks along those lines on airplanes where you talk with the flight attendant and then they say, don't tell me, they won't listen to me. I mean, what kind of a culture is this that they won't listen to you? What makes you think that they'll listen to me if they won't listen to you? That is just, it is such a bad thing that is going on in that organization around this relationship that we have with our customers. I mean, any relationship has problems. Any relationship has problems. And it's a way of just working through them, whether it's a commercial or a personal relationship. And if we began to look at it this way, we think, wow, they told me. They didn't hide it. Yeah.
All right, cool. All right, Teresa, then Betty Tage. And Susan.
Well, I spent years working in the restaurant industry and in hospitality. And I'm so grateful that early in my career, one of the things that we received was training on how to deal with complaints and to actually take this perspective. It was posted on the wall in our break room. And I saw it like 4,000 times a day, that complaining is a gift. And yet it's still very, challenging to deal with sometimes, because I think some people don't know how to complain well. And also like I have to check myself and then, kind of respond to the other person. So I love that you brought in the emotional intelligence component of that. One of the things that you mentioned in your talk that I found incredibly helpful was to identify, and I want to call it out, is that often we're complaining to the wrong person. And so and in learning about emotional intelligence, I love this idea that some people don't have the capacity to hold what we're trying to tell them. And so, or they don't feel powerful, or that they're empowered. And so the other part that I'm curious about is, thinking about how do we get to the right person who can actually take action on it. And so I think that that's also another piece that I would love, I'm sure you probably go into that more, and I'm definitely going to get your book, but that check yourself. Am I talking to the right person? Am I talking to somebody who can actually do something about this? So, Patricia, that's a great example of like talking to the waitress instead of talking to the manager. Like the manager is the one that's making a decision, or maybe the business owner, right? And so I think that does have more power to come directly from the source. So anyway, I'm so fascinated by this topic. I'm really glad it came up today. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. And I just want to say this, I honestly think that everybody in an organization should have the power to do something about a complaint. If nothing else, to say, I'm going to tell my manager, or I'm going to let our corporate offices know this, because I know they changed this. I don't know if this was a chain you were going to, but that they say something to indicate that they're going to do something about it. I really dislike this statement. Don't talk to me. I can't do anything. That's an employee who's angry about their role. They don't have any power at all, and it shows through. I don't know if you guys stopped going to that restaurant, Fripp, but yeah, I know many of us will put up with this, and then it just rewards the organization to continue doing that same behavior. I mean, the world is not perfect.
But I wonder too about the culture, right? Like as a manager, you can say, hey, listen, I want to hear this stuff. If something comes up, don't shut it down, pass it on. Right. Exactly. And so can you, take, I want to hear it and provide a safe space to be able to actually hear what's going on. So, and I love like the landlord, like, hey, I want to hear that there's a problem so that it doesn't become worse, right. And so that they, they're telling you. I love that feedback loop. So anyway, so important.
Yeah. And let me just say this, that I've heard many, many managers say to me, I like the idea of a complaint as a gift, but frankly, I'd like to run our business so that we don't get any complaints. And then I say to them, well, good luck with that. I mean, how in this imperfect world are we going to have no complaints at all? I mean, in hotels, I say to them, for example, here you've got a swimming pool. Some customers like it to be colder because they're swimming laps and they just don't want the heat in the water. Other people are coming into the swimming pool just to stand there and talk with their buddies. That's what their idea of swimming is. And they want different temperatures. How are you possibly going to make that satisfactory for everybody who uses your swimming pool? What you have to do is to teach the people who are there at the pool how to interact with that concept of that, the pool has to be at one temperature or another. It can't be just somewhere moving up and down. Many, many managers have told me that they have just caused serious problems for themselves by saying to their staff, I am sick and tired of hearing about this complaint. I don't want to hear it anymore. Because what the staff will do is they will stop telling the manager. It's not that the complaints will go away. They'll just stop telling people about that complaint. And then and huge losses can occur in an organization when that happens. One man told me that they literally had to close down an entire division because they stopped getting any feedback from their customers. And that had happened because the managers had said, we don't want any more complaints. Some managers pay bonuses to departments or to people who get fewer complaints. Well, let me tell you, the amount of cheating that goes on with that is really high because they all want that bonus. That wasn't a complaint. That was a compliment. That was a question. Questions can be complaints as well. Why'd you change the coffee that you were serving? That's a complaint. It's saying, I don't like the coffee you're serving now. Yeah. So, yes.
Betty, then followed by Susan. And Bill, did you have your hand up or did you accidentally hit the speed up button? All right.
Thank you. Janelle, thank you. There's so much and so many just pearls of wisdom packed into your presentation and your comments to the questions. A couple things is that when I make or I complain about something and I'm talking to somebody that I know cannot do anything about it, I preface it or I say, please, I'm commenting, I'm not complaining because I know you can't do anything. I'm just talking, I whatever. I was at Walgreens out on Geary Boulevard near the ocean, and the sidewalk was disgusting with trash. It was awful, awful. And so when I was in there, I said, may I speak with the manager? And I got to another person and spoke to the quote manager. And I said that I'm not coming back here. And I explained about the trash out in front. And if I were the manager, I would go out and sweep it up. Maybe that's not in your job description, but it's not appealing for people. And I never have gone back, and I should, to see if that has changed. So that's a good example of trying to go to the source, or at least as close to the source as you can get. There's a book that I bought for my granddaughter years ago from the author's luncheon, and it's called No Fair, No Fair. And it's a book of poems about kids, and it's wonderful. And if I could, being chosen, this is, and they're not complaining, but I'm chosen first when we choose teams, but that is only in my dreams. I still don't know what it might feel like to be the first when I am awake. And so the kid's not complaining, but they are indirectly. And I think it's all about communication. The other thing is going to Yelp. No, pick up the phone. Talk to the person who is in the source of who you can get to. It's like the Ritz-Carlton philosophy, which I love. And I actually I'm in the process of writing another, I'm a realtor, and getting testimonials from my clients. But what I just wrote here quickly is, we quote, we always strive to grow, learn, and adapt and move forward to serve our clients the best. We appreciate your feedback on the transaction of either buying or selling your home. And I'm working on a letter, a new one, to send out to people. And I may put something in there like that. And it's just to get feedback so we can grow and learn and serve you better. So, but I appreciate all of your thoughts.
And you know, Betty, when you talk about can't people learn how to better complain, right after the first edition of The Complaint is a Gift, because this latest book is the third edition, I had been invited to speak in Poland, and this was shortly after the Soviet Union split apart. So now Poland was an independent country, and they had been operating for maybe a year or so. And so I'm doing this seminar now to this group of people, young people and old people. And there was a woman in the room who raised her hand, an elderly woman. I wouldn't even say she's elderly. She was in her 50s, I think, something like that. She raised her hand and she said, well, can't we just teach customers to know how to complain better? And the room burst into laughter. This is the rest of the room were young people, and they got it that in a capitalist system, you don't teach the customers how to be better complainers. You teach the company how to respond better to the complaints. That's what goes on. But Betty, so many people ask me, why don't you write the book about how people can become better complainers and get what they want? And I really don't see that as the solution. I think the solution has to come on the commercial side. That's where it has to come, because we are the ones who are getting money. We are the ones who are creating these transactions. It's not up to the customers to be good for us. It is not.
And to respond to these complaints or concerns without ego, but
Yes.
to move forward.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, good idea. Try getting rid of your ego. Try that someday. See what happens.
Okay, Janelle, it's wonderful to see you.
Yes.
I have memories of the first NSA convention, which I'm going to share with people. There was a gentleman standing on the stage talking about how to deal with stress. And I turned to Janelle and said, I think he's wonderful. And Janelle said, he's red in the face. He looks like he's going to pop open any minute. Don't listen to the person who looks like they're stressed about how not to be stressed. You have guided me. Thank you. But I love what you say about how to express a complaint. I was in a hotel in New York for some publishing meeting with my agent or something. And it was a famous hotel, kind of old. and there was no hot water.
Mm.
So what I did is I went to the desk and I said to him, I understand the price for the room. What would you charge me if there was hot water? And they cut some of and I was smiling and the guy started to laugh and he did it. I think if we can say it in a way, because I have a neighbor that every time there's something, look at this face. Well, that doesn't make people, that is the face. I think saying things, it's the words. And so I'm so glad you talked about how to do this. I went on a restaurant review with the late B. Pixa, who wrote for the San Francisco Examiner years ago. And I remember she told me this, and Fripp knows this because I do this when we go out. She said, Susan, if you have a complaint or a compliment, don't tell the host or hostess. They're 20-year-olds. What you have to do is write it on the check that gets checked out by the assistant manager and the manager when they cash out at night. I generally don't write complaints because I don't want anyone to lose their job, but I will write wonderful food, superb service, because I want that to be permanent. And what she said to me, she warned me, she said, and if you're going to write only complaints, you will not be doing people a service. But she also said, if something is wrong, if you don't tell a restaurant and then you just walk out and never come back, they can't change. So thank you. Good reminder. I just can see that guy on stage popping a button, and I've learned do not listen to people that don't live the life that they talk about. Thank you, dear.
All right, so we've got Bill Buchanan.